Welcome to day 17 of our epic 40-day 2025 Pacific Northwest road trip as we continue our exploration of Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. In part 1, we hiked the Cleetwood Cove Trail to the shore of Crater Lake and boarded our boat to begin our circumnavigation of the Crater Lake caldera. After a quick breakfast, we headed to the opposite side of the caldera to the Cleetwood Cove trailhead. And we're now headed down the Cleetwood Cove Trail to the boat landing, where we're going to take the boat ride to around Crater Lake. Cleetwood Cove Trail is the only legal access to the shore of Crater Lake. It is a steep and strenuous hike. In 1.1 miles, the trail drops 700 feet in elevation through a series of long switchbacks. The trail surface is crushed pumice, which is similar to fine sand, and when it's dry, the pumice is loose and slippery underfoot. The trail ends at the boulder-strewn lakeshore, without shade and no beach. And we're headed down the trail. Here's the view. We haven't even gone that far down yet, but actually it's 9:30. These are some of the views of Cleetwood Cove Trail after about a third of a mile. And this is the Cleetwood Cove Trail. It's a mile in length, roughly, from top to bottom, and then obviously a mile back up. At this switchback, we have descended to the halfway point of the trail, approximately 420 feet below the trailhead. We're about to hit another switchback. And the lake is looming closer. After hiking for 3/4 of a mile, we reached the final switchback, located about 250 feet above the lake. And here's one of the various stops. We now reach the Cleetwood Cove Marina facilities, which includes a small boat launch and a composting toilet.
Oh, that worked out.
Yep, here we are at the boat dock at the bottom of Crater Lake. And here we are at the bottom of the trail. If you really want to, I guess you can go swimming over here. The boat launch landing structure had failed in recent years. A temporary dock system has been put in place that is anchored directly to the shore. That's where we had to hike down from. It's a mile-long trail, all switchbacks. You can see people coming down from the trail.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want it to run off gas after.
Way up there.
What are you most excited about?
And here we are,
That you made it here?
getting ready for the boat tour.
Personal accomplishment. And you landed some tickets.
We were fortunate to get a boat tour as the trail will be closing for a major rehabilitation project starting in 2026 and will not open again until the 2029 season.
Ideal for a time. It's cooler out. Usually it's a little calmer, though today it's actually pretty rough. So we might get some good splashes if you all haven't gone swimming yet. You might get to go swimming while you're on the boat. So, like I said, my name is Ranger Ben, and we're going to spend the next 2 hours taking a tour around this beautiful, pristine lake. But before we get
Our first stop on the boat tour was at Llao Rock, a massive flow of rhyodacite lava that is roughly 1,200 feet thick. Located on the north rim of Crater Lake, it rises nearly 2,000 feet above the water's surface and is the highest vertical precipice on the caldera rim.
Welcome to the first wonder of Crater Lake. What are we looking at? So we're looking at this dark rock in front of us to the right. Everyone see that? Kind of starts halfway up and goes towards the top. That is called Llao Rock, L-L-A-O, Llao Rock. And Llao is the name of the Klamath Native American god of the underworld. So we'll learn a lot more about Llao a little bit later. But for now, do you see how there's kind of a white line underneath that rock?
Yeah.
Kind of between the dark and the light. I'll tell you about that in a second, but just remember that it's there in case we get past it. But before I tell you about Llao Rock, I need to tell you about Mount Mazama. So about 8,000 years ago, 12,000 feet up, about a mile above our heads, was the peak of Mount Mazama, which was a mountain that had been there for a long, long time. So if you kind of strain your head all the way back, and kind of blind yourself in the sun, you'd be looking towards the top of that old peak. And you can tell the story of Mount Mazama with 4 words. And those words come with a dance. Are you all up for learning a dance today?
Sure.
Get a little limber? All right, great. So you can do it with me. So first, Mount Mazama grew. Let's do it together. It grew. All right, there we go. And then it blew. And then it fell.
Yeah.
And then it filled. All right, and I like to add my own twist to it. So the way I do it is, first it grew, then it blew, then it fell, and then it filled. So you can pull that out of a party, you'll be the coolest person for sure. And then it stopped 50,000 years ago. It stopped growing. But that magma chamber underneath it, about 2 miles below us, was still growing. It was growing in size and growing in pressure. So what was the next step? What was the next phase? It blew. 7,700 years ago, we had a super colossal eruption, which is actually a technical term that volcano people use. Super colossal. And it blew material, ash, pumice, 30 miles into the air. This eruption was 40 times as big as Mount St. Helens.
Wow.
A massive eruption. And the wind was blowing northeast that day. We know that because we can find this layer of ash really thick all the way up to like 800 miles away in Canada. And it blew little fine particles of ash and dust all the way up into the stratosphere, and those fine particles actually made their way all the way around the world. They made their way past Boston, past India, probably not to another planet. But they actually took some ice cores in Greenland, drove some ice cores, and they found a layer of Mazama ash all the way in Greenland.
Wow.
200 years before the big Mazama eruption, that magma chamber was growing in pressure. It was really high pressure, and so it managed to find a way to shoot some lava out of the side of Mount Mazama. And there were kind of two phases to that. The first phase was a massive explosion outside of the mountain, and it created this kind of like a circular crater shape. And with that initial explosion came some light-colored ash and pumice that made that white line halfway down. And then after that initial explosion, some thicker, darker, kind of toothpastey lava oozed out and filled up the crater that was caused by the initial explosion. And that formed the Llao rock, the dark rock above us there at the top. A white line with some dark lines on the edges,
Yeah.
right down here.
Yeah.
So that kind of narrow strip is actually one of the dikes, volcanic dikes, kind of a pipe that fed that Llao rock explosion back, almost 8,000 years ago. So look at the size of Llao rock. Look how giant of a crater that created, and look how small this dike is. So imagine how much pressure was in that dike.
Our next stop was at a prominent geological feature called the Devil's Backbone, a vertical wall of dark andesite rock that stretches from the water's edge to the caldera rim. This feature is a volcanic dike formed when molten lava forced its way into a vertical crack with an ancient Mount Mazama and solidified.
Okay, coming up ahead of us, kind of directly ahead of us on our right there, we have a collection of kind of dark, jagged rocks that go all the way from the lake up in kind of some triangles all the way to the rim. You all see that?
Yeah.
So if you first saw those jagged rocks, what do you think you would name them? Curious. Anybody have any creative names? Hoodoos, all right. What else? Spires. Spires. Maybe like a sleeping dragon or something. So these are actually called the Devil's Backbone. Ooh. I think if this is the Devil's Backbone, he needs to see a chiropractor personally. But yeah, so this is another example of one of those volcanic dikes that we were just looking at. The ones that we were looking at were very small. This one is huge. And as we come around the front of it, we'll be able to see just how wide it is. But what exactly is a volcanic dike? Well, basically, so we had that pressurized magma chamber about 2 miles below us. And some of that magma was able to find cracks and crevices and make its way all the way up to the surface of the mountain and then explode or flow out the side. And that's what happened here. So this is kind of like the plumbing of the mountain that we're seeing. And this was formed about 150,000 years ago. And it actually corresponds to a lava flow on the outside that goes for about 6 miles. So there's a lot of lava that flowed out of this. But why is the Devil's Backbone standing by itself now? Well, when magma cools on the inside of a mountain, like it hasn't been shot out as lava, it cools very slowly over a long period of time, and that gives it enough time for big rock crystals to form. And that makes the rock very hard. So this is actually very hard rock, as opposed to the horizontal layers around it. Those dried very quickly, those cooled very quickly, because they were on the top, on the surface of the mountain. And so those are all very soft. So after Mount Mazama collapsed, 7,700 years ago, after that happened, all of the horizontal layers started to erode in these big rock slides that we see, and left this Devil's Backbone standing by itself. There's some birds up there. What are those? Osprey, maybe? Brought it up to the rim, actually by the lodge over there on the south side, and lowered it down to the lake. Took about 8 hours to get it down to the lake.
And there's still snow here in August. We next stopped at Skell Channel to view Wizard Island.
It's called Skell Channel because Skell is the Klamath Native American god of the overworld. So Llao, the god of the underworld, Skell, the god of the overworld. And as we come into this bay, it's pretty calm here, so if you would like to, you can stand up and take a look over the edge, see if you can see the bottom. I think we're not quite there yet, but yeah.
Go ahead.
We next went into Fumarole Bay.
So this was actually after Mount Mazama collapsed, of course. Some people think Wizard Island looks like the old top of the mountain, but that's not true. The top of Mount Mazama is destroyed somewhere at the bottom of the lake. This was a secondary volcano afterwards. So it was forming at the same time that the water was filling. So I like to think of and he was fascinated. His imagination was captured immediately. Oh, as we exit this bay, if you wouldn't mind sitting down, it's not too choppy, but so his imagination was immediately captured. This was 1880, 1870 something. But it wasn't until he was 31 years old that he was first able to visit Crater Lake. Wolves to control the population, then they take over. The crayfish have taken over the lake. They're very happy here, and one of their favorite snacks is actually the local Mazama newt, which is kind of like a salamander that only exists here and is now critically endangered because it's being eaten by those. Looks like the entrance to like a Disney dwarven mine ride or something, I think. So that's the old boathouse where we used to keep the boats, but now we keep the boats in the winter in these new boathouses to the right. There's kind of a short brown one, that's where we keep the tour boats. And then the one on the right is where we keep the science boats. Those are the two types of boats that we have on the lake. We keep them there in the winters. Because if you look at the trees, you can see the green, yellow lichen that's growing on it. That's called wolf lichen, or antelope lichen, or maybe staghorn lichen. And you can see at the bottom there's kind of a section where it doesn't cover the tree trunk. And that is usually kind of the average snow depth during the winter, because it can't really survive under the snow. So on Wizard Island, it actually doesn't get that deep. But if you look up like at Rim Village, you'll see it'll be, 12, 15 feet above your head sometimes, because that's how deep the snow can get.
After leaving Wizard Island, we made a short stop to view Crater Lake Lodge from the lake itself.
Alright, we're just going to make a quick stop here, just because I want to point out something that you might recognize, but from a different perspective.
Oh, the
yeah. Up there on the rim, there's a big building up there, and that is the Crater Lake Lodge, the historic Crater Lake Lodge. Built in 1915 originally, but not built very well, to be honest, in the beginning. So they had to basically tear it down and rebuild it at least once since then. If you're interested, it's really fascinating history. They have a little history exhibit in the lodge. If you go to the front desk and turn left, you'll see it over there.
This is the Crater Lake Lodge. Here can be seen the Senate Memorial Overlook. Mary and I thank you for watching Day 17, Part 1 of our 2025 Pacific Northwest road trip, where we began our exploration of Crater Lake National Park. When I had originally tried to book a boat tour in advance, the National Park website had said there would not be boat tours available in 2025. Fortunately, the park ranger informed me that the closures would start in 2026 and tours were still available. I was able to call and book the lake tour, but there were not tickets available for the tour that allowed you to spend time at Wizard Island. We started the day with a hike on the Cleetwood Cove Trail to the shore of Crater Lake. We then boarded our boat to begin our circumnavigation of the Crater Lake caldera. We hope you'll join us for Day 17, Part 2, where we continue our boat tour of Crater Lake, getting close-up views of the Phantom ship, as well as meeting the old man of the lake.